hopefully the next round will be transferring some important parts over onto that engine and getting that set to go. The other thing that I've decided is that this front clip is going to come off when I go to put that other engine back in. Getting this engine out with that front clip in place was pretty tricky. I think trying to, pilot one back in there is going to be even tougher. So I think I'm going to make it easy on myself and get that front clip off before I put the engine in. Trip out to Windy Hills Auto Recycling for some odds and ends. Here's my shopping list, and you can see I didn't get everything, but I got the important things. So I finally tracked down a replacement bench seat for my truck. Now my truck originally came with a bench seat and somebody switched it over to buckets. I wanted to go back to the bench. Now this seat does not look great. The vinyl looks kind of crispy, but it is complete. And I'm hoping that what I've got here is certainly enough for somebody to use as a pattern to make new upholstery. So I just want to keep it simple. And this one's got everything. It's got all the pad. It's got the seat adjuster. So it'd be great to get this thing back to original. So these are the replacement seats, the non-original seats. I think these are, well, no, these are actually out of an International. Might have been a little bit newer, but they needed to be reupholstered. This one in particular, that duct tape sits right over a spring that sticks out of that seat. So there was work to be done no matter what. So I thought this was a good time to go back to the original bench seat. So I will be putting these seats up for sale. If anybody sees this video and is interested, get in touch with me through the comments. Another problem I wanted to address on this truck was these firewall connectors. They normally would pull through the firewall and just rotate to lock in, but the lock-in clips are broken on both of these. So I was able to find some good ones at Windy Hills, so I will be swapping these out. Okay, getting these connectors out of one of these plugs is really pretty simple. You'll need something to press in here because there's a little prong that locks those in. In this case, I just took a hacksaw blade and made my own tool. And then you can see right here from the front, what you'll want to do is just work this in. There. Once you've got it all the way in, you can just pull that connector out. And if you look right here, what you're going to see is just a little tab. Now when you go to put this back in, you might have to pry that tab up again so it grabs, but it's that simple. Here they are back on the firewall, nice and snug. Right, the engine bay is as cleaned up as it's going to get. Might dab a little bit of Rust-Oleum on some of the exposed metal. I'm not trying to make this thing a beauty. I just want to protect it. And I got the transmission cross member all cleaned up. I also reassembled the transmission to the bell housing to the engine, and that was not without its trouble. That's a very heavy transmission, and I think I had it in and out of there three or four times. Every time I put it in, my clutch lever that goes to the fork inside and onto the release bearing just kept letting go, and I finally figured out that I had to get that thing positioned, lock this into place, then bring it in. So I did get that done. So just a little bit more to do here. I have some 90 weight oil coming tomorrow. I'm told I need to use GL1, which doesn't have all the additives. It's going to be about 1.5 gallons for that transmission. Then I will pull off the radiator, pull off the carburetor so that I can put my lift plate on there, and I should be in position to put this back in. Don't look too close, but it's painted. That's just plain old gloss Rust-Oleum, and it'll just keep the bare parts from rusting. After I power washed it, there were a few parts of bare metal here. So with that, I have the cross member in now. That's ready to go. I have the motor ready to go, or I should say the engine. So I took the carb off, I put my lift plate on, moved a couple other fittings for the heater hoses over here onto this thing. And one of the things I didn't mention is that I picked up a hard line for the vacuum advance that goes to the carburetor. Don't really need it to be a hard line. What I had was just basically 2 cutoff lines and a rubber line between them, but since I was there, I thought I'd pick this up. Just looks nicer. So with that, we move on and we lift this whole thing in. All right, it's in. I snug down the front motor mount. There's one dead center here that goes on this big Y-shaped bracket and rests on a front cross member. And the back of the motor is secured, let's see if I can show it to you there, by these mounts that go right onto the bell housing. I haven't bolted those in yet. They're just set in place. But I think that's where I'm going to stop for tonight. I've got a lot to do with this still. I've got to put my power steering back on. I've got a lot of wiring to do, hook up my heater hoses. And then I think before I start messing around with the front clip, I'm probably going to get it. Oh, I've got to also get the exhaust manifolds hooked up to the pipes. But then I think what I'll do is put the carb back on and just temporarily wire it just to run it here in the chassis before I put the front clip on. Sorry, it jumped ahead. Got the front clip back on. It wasn't too bad. And I've reconnected all the wires. Now I just need to drop in the radiator and we'll fire this thing up. So let's talk about where I'm at. It actually went really well. Getting the engine in, getting everything reconnected, getting the front clip on. Surprisingly well, considering this was the first time I've ever done anything like this. But I will tell you, I've probably spent 2 days now working on the cooling. Here's what's going on. Every time I hook this thing up and refill the radiator, my lower hose is leaking. It started leaking. It's first when I tested it at the bottom. I finally got that figured out, changed the positioning on the clamp. But now the top part of the hose where it goes into the water pump housing is leaking. And I think I've had that on and off at least 6 or 7 times now trying to address that leak. So let me show you with the other engine how that works. This right here is a water pump, and it just bolts on to this housing with these 4 bolts, and I've got a brand new water pump on the other engine. What's going on, I believe, is that this cast housing, that this neck right here is corroded and scaled so bad that I don't think I'm getting a good seal. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking this whole unit off of that engine because it's really tight clearance. I can't get in here. I'm going to take it off of that engine and I'm going to hit this with a wire wheel and get it as smooth as I possibly can, and then I'll put it back together. So I've got the radiator and the shroud out now. Fan is off. The pulleys are off. Now I have access to the bolts to get this thing off. But I have one more thing to do before I can take this off. You'll notice that both of these water pipes run into this. That means all of the coolant that's in the heads is going to dump. So this is the messiest part of the job. So I have my trusty cement mixing tub down here. I've lined it in a garbage bag because this coolant is brand new in there. I might as well capture it and reuse it. So I don't think I'm going to catch all of it, but I should be able to catch most of it that drops down here. It's probably going to splash, but let's get to it. Alright, I got the pump housing off, and I've hit the neck here with a wire wheel. Feel it close. It's a rough casting, and I don't know, this doesn't look bad to me, but there is kind of a flat spot right here. So, and I've had both the old, this is the old hose that went on there, and I put a brand new one on because I thought it was the hose at first. That's not the problem. So I'm going to try one of two things. Either I'm going to put some JB Weld around here, just kind of slather it around and then sand it smooth, or high build primer. But I don't know if you can see this, but it's a pretty good flat spot, and that's exactly where the leak appeared to be coming from. So I think I'm going to go with the JB Weld. The epoxy is cured now. Got a good hard finish. I'll take some emery cloth and sand this smooth. Have to pay special attention right to this area. This is where that flat spot was. Feels like it's in pretty good shape right now. I'm all done sanding. It's much smoother than it was. Doesn't need to be perfect, but the flat spot's gone and I don't have any voids here, so that hose should seal up nice on this now. Everything is done. I finally took care of my water leak, and of all things, it turned out to be this heater hose connection down here. It was actually right above where that lower hose comes into the water pump housing. Made me think it was that one. So a lot of work for nothing, but it's not leaking anymore. Now I have had it running and everything works. I'm going to pull it out here just so you can see that. Running. I'm happy that most everything is working, but you can probably hear that right now. Sounds like a lifter. So I'm not done. I can't put the hood on. Can't do much else until I figure that out. Didn't want to end the 5th episode this way. I was planning to put the hood on and take everybody for a drive, but with this lifter noise, there's going to be an episode 6. So if there's any experts out there on this International SB motor, chime in, let me know what you think it is. I didn't put new lifters in, but they seem like they were fine, and it's not misfiring or anything, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do next here, but stay tuned and we'll see if we can figure it out. So thanks for joining me on the journey.